What is up, gamers? I am the outrageous retro gaming nerd, and today we're going to be playing the worst game of all time. That's right, E.T. on Atari 2600. This game is so bad that it was buried in a landfill. But does this game really suck gigantic green alien ass? If you've spent any amount of time watching gaming related videos on YouTube, then you've probably seen so many videos like this one. The whole setup of an angry gamer lashing out at these ancient pieces of obsolete gaming media is one of the biggest cliches in the world of online content creation. And these cliched players and us as the audience can't seem to get enough of 1982's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. For those unaware, E.T. on Atari 2600 was released in December 1982 to tie in with the release of the film of the same name.
E.T. Home phone.
E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home.
Fans were expecting to be able to relive the emotional rollercoaster moments of the highest grossing film of 1982. Instead, they were met with something completely different. The game was a critical and commercial disaster, which brought about the total collapse of the video game industry in North America, with thousands of unsold copies being buried in a landfill in New Mexico. Normally, this is where a story like this would end. But in this case, rather like E.T. himself, the game was miraculously resurrected over 2 decades later by a community who bonded over its terrible gameplay and larger-than-life mythology. In this video essay, we'll be exploring how E.T. the Extraterrestrial spectacularly failed as a piece of transmedia play, before being brought back to life by communities of curious gamers for all the wrong reasons. Part 1. Exploring E.T. and transmedia play.
Only from Atari. Made especially for systems from Atari. The video game that lets you help E.T. get home. Just in time for Christmas. Happy holidays.
To understand the failure of E.T. on the Atari 2600 back in 1982, we must first explore and examine the concept of transmedia storytelling. As part of a handout designed for his students, media scholar Henry Jenkins describes transmedia storytelling as when parts of a work of fiction are shared through different media channels to create one cohesive entertainment experience. Jenkins lists as an example the franchise of The Matrix, where the story contained within that universe is spread across several feature films, an animated cartoon, and a few video games. In this same blog post, Henry Jenkins outlines 7 core concepts of transmedia, one of which is a performative aspect that allows us to create our brand new stories within these well-established fictional worlds. This can also include elements of transmedia play triggering certain memories, and making the player act them out in a said media product, which in this case is E.T. the Extraterrestrial on Atari 2600. This expectation that the Atari version would allow players to become part of the movie and the story of E.T. is cemented from the very start of the game, as the title sequence greets the player with a chiptune arrangement of the movie's main theme, along with a pixelated rendering of our main protagonist. Right off the bat though, the gameplay experience is quite different from what the title screen and the posters promised. Now, I went into making this essay with the knowledge that the game was bad. But what I was not prepared for was how infuriating simply capturing the gameplay footage for this video essay would be. After the cozy title sequence, the player begins controlling a character who, with the best will in the world, bears little to no resemblance to the creature from the beloved film. The scenery is also incredibly bland and uninspiring. On my first playthrough, I happened to spend a full 10 minutes trying to fly out of the many holes and pits strewn throughout the map, in an experience that I just couldn't stop laughing at. Right off the bat, this game fails as a good piece of transmedia. When done right, the compositional whole created by two transmedia products, say a movie with a video game tie-in that expands the story, makes a unique interface full of fun and dynamic experiences. E.T. was not one of these. This game creates the exact opposite experience, and is the antithesis of other video game adaptations, such as Raiders of the Lost Ark, which accurately recreated scenes and moments from the film, and was a huge hit for Atari and the 2600 game console.
Can Indiana Jones escape from the forces of evil? Can he survive 13 fiendish situations? Will Indy make it all the way? Find out in Atari's Raiders of the Lost Ark adventure game.
This game sucks more than Sonic 06 and Superman 64 combined. How in the fuck am I even supposed to enjoy being dragged down so many lifeless shit pits? This game makes me want to have a full-on lobotomy. What a load of garbage. This frustrating gameplay is certainly partially down to the game's unorthodox development style. In 1982, the man responsible for creating and programming Atari's Raiders of the Lost Ark was asked if he could create a video game version of E.T., which the company had spent $21 million acquiring the rights for. There was just one problem, which is that 24-year-old developer Howard Scott Warshaw was expected to design and deliver the final game to his bosses in just 5 weeks' time. This was in sharp contrast to the 6 to 8 months he'd spent making Raiders of the Lost Ark. Unfazed by this and full of youthful confidence, Warshaw even installed a development suite in his home so he could work on the game constantly in this horrible, malnourished, food and sleep-deprived state.
What it was a game that was sort of jammed into a crazy time in the dawning of the games industry. And when they had a license for E.T., it didn't matter how much time there was, a game had to come out, and I was the only person in development who was willing to take the chance to try and do a game in 5 weeks when no one had ever done a game in less than 5 or 6 months. So I did it. I got the thing done. It was like 8K of original code, and I climbed a mountain, and it's been very gratifying to me.
This left absolutely no time to playtest the game, with its 5-week development style meaning Atari was essentially sending out a buggy and almost unplayable mess to store shelves, hoping that the name E.T. alone would bring in the big bucks. This development hell certainly makes the playing experience more digestible, but even with this understanding in mind, it's hard to comprehend what this green blob and these endless holes have to do with Steven Spielberg's cinematic masterpiece.
It was nothing like that, penis breath!
Elliot! Sit down.
Eventually, if one persists with this infuriating experience long enough, which I was unable to do, E.T. collects all the missing pieces of the phone to call home and be rescued. And that's it. No end credits, no victory music, just an extremely bland end to a bland mess of an overall depressing gaming experience. Though not single-handedly responsible, the amount of returns of E.T. on the Atari 2600 and the negative reviews and sales helped bring on what is known the video game crash of 1983.
But across the nation, the arcade business has seen somewhat of a slump. Time magazine reports last year's average weekly profit from an arcade video game dropped 25%, from $140 to $109. This year, it's projected to drop to $93.
It's been doing all right, but from last year, it's been down about 20%.
The crash ended up affecting Atari so badly that they actually buried unsold and returned copies of E.T. and other cartridges in a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico, just to get rid of them. The game then lay dormant for 23 years, until around 2006, when one man with his white shirt and foul language helped give this weird game one extra life. Part 2. The Angry Gamer and Their Communities of Play.
Fuck. Die! You try to help me now, man? Well,
Let me be honest with you about this one. Ooh boy, I hate this game.
This is James Rolfe, better known to his fans as the Angry Video Game Nerd. In 2006, on the YouTube channel James Nintendo Nerd, his friend Mike Matei uploaded 3 videos known as the Angry Nintendo Nerd Trilogy. These videos quickly became a sensation, which spawned an entire empire of over 200 episodes based around Rolfe's foul-mouthed rants and quote-unquote reviews of retro video games.
And some game designer who's laughing their ass off just decided to put a pizza down there.
Now the 4th expansion module connects it to a dishwasher. Like, who makes video games based off the Bible? Why would you do that?
James also wasn't alone, as in 2007 the first ever video to describe itself as a Let's Play featuring video game visuals and an audio commentary by the player was uploaded to the internet by Michael Sawyer. These early Let's Plays and the Angry Video Game Nerd series were absolutely groundbreaking, because they totally upended the popular notion at the time that watching someone play a video game could be anything other than dull and uninteresting.
This is gonna be it. Finally gonna land the plane.
Speed down, left, left, speed up, right, right, speed up, speed down, left, left, speed up, speed down, up, 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 I'm hitting up.
It was also important because James Rolfe was unknowingly tapping into something much deeper than a few people who had fond and maybe bad memories of the old game cartridges that he was now ripping to shreds in front of the camera. Here we arrive at our second topic of discussion relating to ET with communities of play. A community of play can be described as when a group of people are brought together over a shared interest, and groups forming naturally around this shared passion, which in this case is video games. Communities of play have existed in many forms that predate the internet, such as chess clubs and fun summer camps, but their usual limitations of geographical reach and scale quickly became a thing of the past when they began to surface and become prevalent online. But it was a particular type of game that James Rolfe's audience were bonding over and forming communities of play around, which is where our green pal E.T. enters the picture. In an article about video game romanticism for the Journal for Religion, Film and Media, Frank Bosman explores this cultural fascination with bad video games. In this article, he outlines our cultural fascination around works of art that are bad, noting the fascination with bad movies as paracinema. He also introduces the term kusoge, a combination of the Japanese words meaning crap and game, as a celebration of this fascination with terrible video games. He also goes on to note the uniqueness of bad games and how we are forced to interact with them, unlike when we see a bad film and we are only the observer. In this case, with the bad video game, we are essentially the driving force behind the awful things unfolding on screen, whether it's the terrible game mechanics, the rubbish story, or the awful controls. This concept can be extended to finding pleasure and joy as a community in watching someone suffer through and play bad video games.
Oh, here comes his island cruiser!
A Skyline
Go to
cruiser?
hyperspace! Ready, hit it!
Wait, where's the hyperspace?
Grandpa, you're the spaceship, not the...
I'm the what? I thought I was this guy. Oh!
Game's over, Grandpa.
I got down on the floor for this?
Which is exactly what James Rolfe's Angry Video Game Nerd was tapping into. All through the early years of the series, the show and its creator were frequently asked when he was going to review E.T., the worst game of all time, with the whole concept about his refusal to review E.T. being the subject of an entire feature film based around the Angry Video Game Nerd character.
E.T. on Atari 2600. To begin with, it's not a game you just pick up and play. Most games this generation were very simple. Shoot a bunch of aliens, climb to the top of the screen, stop missiles, or chomp down all the pellets.
Aside from streamers and YouTubers, one of the other communities which helped bring E.T. back to the forefront of culture were speedrunners. These players embraced the game's broken logic and backwards gameplay, all to see who could beat it in the fastest possible time as a community of play. At the time of writing, the speedrun record for the game stands at 59 seconds and 290 milliseconds, which was set 7 years ago by the user Carter44 on speedrun.com. Suddenly, E.T. on the Atari 2600 found itself back into the limelight, and as its reputation online was growing, so were the communities keen to finally put one of the game's most enduring myths to rest. In 2014, a selection of fans, journalists, and members of the public watched as a documentary film crew excavated this landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico, looking for the final resting place of E.T.
The search for what many call the worst Atari game ever at a New Mexico dump is still in full swing tonight. Now, crews have already uncovered thousands of cartridges and are continuing to dig for more. News 13's Emily Younger was there today as a piece of history was unearthed.
We found something.
After more than 30 years of speculation and hours upon hours of digging, history was made.
E.T. is definitely here.
E.T. Mania was in full swing around this time, with one devoted fan even creating and releasing a so-called fixed version of the game, which fixed many of the bugs present in the original version, such as the endless falling into the pits and the wonky, unresponsive controls. It seemed that by the mid-2010s, thanks to those communities of play which sprung up around old terrible video games, E.T. had unexpectedly come back to the forefront of video game culture. In the background of all this, the communities of play based around retro gaming kept getting larger and larger. In a stat published by YouTube themselves in 2023, they revealed that there were 1,000 times more videos uploaded on the platform which concerned retro gaming in the first half of 2022 than there were for the same time period back in 2007. Suddenly, this phenomenon and the community was no longer confined to the keyboards in the bedrooms of small pockets of gamers around the world. Retro gaming and ET were now big business. Thanks to the amount of mythos that had now been generated by retro gaming communities, 100 copies of the game recovered from the landfill were then sold for a whopping $37,000, with the auction giving fans the chance to own a real-life piece of this tantalizing video game legend. E.T. on Atari 2600's failure as a piece of transmedia and coherent game design sent those cartridges straight to the landfill in New Mexico. And ironically, those exact same elements drew in thousands of fans, journalists, critics, and YouTubers 30 years later after it was sent to its shallow plastic grave. If anything can be learned from the saga of E.T., it is the power and strength in those communities of play in which gamers refuse to let these old pieces of obsolete media die and be forgotten about. The game was created in a time where there were no set rules and boundaries in the video game industry. Its own creator, Howard Scott Warshaw, is incredibly surprised and moved by the fact that some simple computer code he wrote over 3 decades ago is still generating so much discussion, joy, frustration, and emotion in people's lives to this very day. And there you have it, folks, the worst video game of all time. Don't forget to comment below what shit games you want to form a community of play over next, and be sure to tell me if there are any other absolute failures of transmedia as arse-paralysingly dull as E.T. on the Atari 2600. Thanks for watching.